Hello, Andrew Wertenberger here with Caesar Guarini. We're in the stockroom today and we're going to talk a little bit today about oil finishes, care and feeding if you will. So there's kind of two general types of finishes available for gun stocks. There's oil-based finishes and there's polyurethane or epoxy type finishes. Oil finishes are a very traditional method, and they're also really kind of a beautiful thing in the fact that they are easily touched up and maintained and over time. Urethane finishes are great right up until you chip them, which eventually, as we all know, we're going to dent or ding or scratch our gun. And urethane finish requires completely stripping down and starting over, whereas a hand-rubbed oil finish is going to be much easier to spot treat, maintain, touch up over time without completely refinishing the gun. Nothing brings the beauty out of the wood quite like an oil finish does. And there's a reason that the best gun makers have been using it forever. It's because it's really truly a beautiful finish, and with a little bit of care and feeding, really is perpetual and lasts infinitely. We have a stock here today that's already, I've taken the time to clean the surface and prepare it, if you will. It doesn't require a lot of cleaning, but any kind of foreign material or oil or residue from handling has the potential of not allowing our additional oil to bond correctly. One of the other things that can affect your finish are things like bug spray. An errant drop of bore solvent can be detrimental to any finish, let alone an oil finish. Some sunscreens can affect finishes. Basically anything chemical has the potential of negatively affecting any finish. You want to make sure that should you have any of those materials that ever did come in contact with the stock, they've been removed before you start this process. So the product we're going to use today is boiled linseed oil. It's a very ubiquitous product, readily found at nearly every hardware store I've ever been in. Again, a product that's been around for hundreds of years and used in wood applications very successfully. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a little bit of material, a small drop if you will, on my finger. I'm going to be applying this with my bare hand, and there's a reason for that. There's several reasons for it. One, it allows me to better tell how thick or how much material I'm putting on. Two, if I happen to get some airborne dust or anything caught in the finish, I'm going to feel that under my finger and I can then stop and correct it right away so as to not scratch the wood or anything else. And so again, I've got a liberal drop on my finger, and I'm just going to work that one drop of oil over the entire surface using my fingers, making sure to get right to the edges. And I can just manipulate that material, spreading it all over the surface. Now when I get up into the areas around the checkering, I want to be careful not to pack a bunch of oil into the checkering, or any, honestly. I can work right up to the edge of it, getting it covered. And my goal here is not to put on a very thick, heavy coat of half-inch clear coat. My goal in application here is I'm really just trying to nourish the finish that's already there. I'm the kind of person, individually, that if I think warm thoughts, I begin to sweat. That sweat requires that I put a coat of oil finish on my stock, perhaps more frequently than some. Again, I'm just working it along into all the edges and seams. I'm being careful not to get it on the metal. I don't want to get oil all over my stock, rather all over my receiver, because this is a finish oil. It is not a lubricant. It is not a metal protectant. It's a wood protectant. It is going to dry to a hard film. That hard film makes it more water resistant, protects it, enriches it, brings out the beauty of the wood. So once I've got everything covered, I've got a nice even film spread all over the stock, nothing in the checkering, nothing on the metal. If, for example, during this process I caught some lint or some airborne dust and I got that embedded into the stock, into the finish I've just applied, the boiled linseed oil, let's pretend I had that problem and I have some material stuck in there that I don't want, I can literally take a clean dry rag and completely wipe the surface clean, removing all the oil that I've already applied, and then go straight back in and reapply where I've cleaned it off. I could do that to small areas, or I could do that to the entire stock if it were necessary. I of course put it on perfectly the first time, but I'd rather you see the ease in which it is to apply this material. Now once I've got all of the surface covered and my light thin coat how I want it, I'm going to need to let this set aside and cure. I would recommend no less than 12 hours cure time between coats. 24 is better. The most important thing is when you do come back to your stock after it's had a little time for the surface to cure, you inspect it and make sure it's up to snuff, as it were. You may decide it needs another coat to get the luster you're looking for. You may decide, oops, I put a run in it and I got to take that out. If you were to put a run in it, you could always steel wool that run down depending on how egregious it is. And careful to hold it either by the action or in this case by the checkering, so I don't put any fingerprints in my hard work. What I want to do is I want to let this dry in an area, perhaps I've got a closet in my house or somewhere I can set it where it's not going to be exposed to dust and traffic. I want some place for it to dry where I don't have to worry about airborne particles landing on it and getting stuck in the finish. I'm going to let that set to the side and cure for, again, 12 to 24 hours. I can put successive coats on at any time, bringing the luster up brighter if I wanted. I can do the exact same thing with the fore-end as well. So same process, fore-end's been prepped, I've cleaned it, wiped it down, made sure there's no fore-end debris on it. And I can do the exact same thing by taking that little bit of oil and just working it onto the surface over the whole thing. And I know I've already said it, but just to say it again, if you think of it in the context of you're not trying to paint on a heavy coat, you're trying to nourish the oil that's already in the wood. Just giving it a little moisture into the oil that's already there, because no matter how dry your stock looks, it still has oil in it. So I'm going to work my way around the fore-end, doing exactly what I did on the stock, being cautious not to get it onto the steel, being cautious not to get it into the checkering, leaving myself a nice shiny coat. Once this has been completely covered, I'm going to set that aside for 12 to 24 hours, allowing it to cure fully. So as you can see, with a small amount of care and feeding, your Caesar Guerini oil finish stock will last a very long time, and every year or bi-yearly when you choose to maintain it, you're going to just keep building a more and more beautiful finish on your stock. Thank you very much for your time. If you have other questions or interests that we can help with, visit us today at GueriniUSA.com.